second. There.
Would like
We're going to redo the rainfall program so that
a list of
it reads
days or
from
a list
and
of
writes
weeks
to a file.
or a list of months or something like that to prompt us.
Because in real life, you don't want to enter the same data every
for
time.
what kind of data we are tracking. So let's make a list
kind
of
like
days
we did last
of
time.
week. So I'm just going to put
Let's flesh
day
out what a rainfall
is equal to. But we're going to go
data
ahead and fill
file
this
might
one in.
look like.
Monday,
I've got a couple of
Tuesday,
ideas. One could be
Wednesday, Thursday,
I mean, January, you know, comma,
Saturday,
20
and
inches
Sunday.
of rain. February, comma, you know, 40. That's kind of tedious in my mind to have to put that there. How about if we
have
just
done this
list the
before.
months,
Write a week
Jan,
that would print
Feb,
out
March,
that array.
April, May,
How would we do that?
June,
What's one way of printing out that array?
July, August,
We talked about
September,
4 in loop, 4 each loops,
October,
and 4 range
November,
loops.
December.
How would
The
we
funny
do a
thing
4
about the
range
alphabet
loop?
is once you get up to here, oct means 8,
Yeah, 4.
November
let's
means
do,
9.
Yeah,
December means
S
10, but this is our
in
12th month and our 11th month and
in
our 10th
range,
month.
or I like
Sep
I
means
for index
7th.
counter, but whatever.
So,
and then what is our
anyways.
range going to be?
apparently the Romans started counting at March
We
rather
want it
than
to be the length of
when
this
naming
array,
their months,
just so that we
rather
can print
than
them all out.
January. And some people like Julius Caesar were important enough to get
And
their
then
own month.
print.
Anyways,
That's
I don't really know the history of it, but I've always thought it funny that Oct, November, and December were 10,
Print
11,
that
12.
day.
Shut up,
There we
Professor.
go, like
Let's
that.
keep going. Alrighty.
Doesn't matter
So,
what the name
and
of the
then we
variable
could
is
just
here,
list
as
the
long as
scores
that,
after that. You
base,
know,
I mean, it's a counter
10,
that's gonna go
20,
from 1
40, 10.
up
Okay,
to,
that
but
was
not
a really
including
wet
sevens.
April. Maybe this
Excuse
is
me,
in
it's going to start at
millimeters of
0
rain or
and go up
something.
to, but not including
Okay,
7.
so
0, 1,
10,
2,
20,
3,
40,
4, 5, 6. This should just print out all
30,
the days. That's good
10,
enough.
0. We had a dry spell. I need 12 of these numbers. 1, 2, 3,
So save this one as
4,
temps,
5,
let's make
6,
sure it works.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Right now, that's all we
Just
wanted
put
to
any
do is
numbers
print
in there that you
a
want.
list of days.
I'm going to double check to
It
make sure
doesn't
that I have
because I have
12. I
bad
guess I'll
syntax.
find out when I write the
I have a
program that
missing
reads this data.
parentheses here.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Monday, Tuesday,
10,
Wednesday,
11,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it printed those. So what do we want the program to do?
And maybe
We want
we'll
it-
be
don't
cool
type
and give it
this.
a,
We want
a
it to look
title
like this.
like rainfall.
What is the temperature
Data.
for,
you know, 20,
Monday?
17.
And we can type
Whatever.
it in. You know, we'll type in 45. What is the
So I think that's
temperature for Tuesday?
One possible way
and we'll
that we
type
can
in
approach
something
saving
else.
this data.
That's the kind
And
of thing
others
that
we can
wanna
do, you know, pretty much like our table where we had
So instead of
January
just
followed
printing
by a
out the
10
day,
and a
we need to be
February
using
followed
some
by 20
input
and whatever. But
statements.
that's more like an output file, you know. When you're making something pretty and you
But
want
let's
to
go ahead
email
and
it to
separate it
somebody or
into
whatever.
two things.
This is data files
like
for
we have
reading
been doing.
in.
It's not gonna
Reading
make it
in
look
doesn't have to be
exactly
pretty.
like that, but let's
unlike
print out the message.
writing it out.
What
Why
is
would
the
we put the name of the months in there? Well, if we were going to
temperature
change this program
and
so
let's
that,
print out
you
that
know,
day.
I doubt that the Japanese have the same month names as we
And then
do.
a question mark.
Maybe so. I could be wrong about
It's going to look a little bit weird because the
Or,
question
you
mark's
know,
going to
in
have
Russian,
a
they're
space
probably
before,
considerably
which it doesn't
different.
in the English language, but that's okay.
So, you know, writing those out, I think, is a nice thing because when we print our table
Get
out,
that temperature.
our data out,
T is equal to input,
we can customize.
convert it
what
to a
was
float.
outputted, if that's a verb, based on what we had in our data.
T is equal to float T.
I don't see anything else we need to take care of in here unless we wanted the option of doing this for multiple years in a row. And I don't think we need to do that.
And now we need to store that in the array. We need to add it to our list. So now that we have the empty list, that's the list that we want to add it to. Temps.append.
All right, I'm going to save this as
Append is how you
into my
add a piece of data to a
script
list.
directory with rainfall.txt. And so if we think about what our program needs to do, it needs to read that line in, just print it out, that's good enough.
There we go.
Or whatever
that
it's
makes
going
an
to
empty
do.
list. I'm just taking some extra notes over here.
Then read that line in and split it into a list. Read that line in, split it into a list. And assuming all that worked, then we should have two parallel
L.append.
arrays, two parallel lists.
Adds an item to the
And a
end of the
parallel
list.
list is where you have two lists. And the first item in the first one corresponds to the first item in the second one. Jeff Thompson, Devon Presley, Donald Trump, like that. So the element 0 in each list corresponds to each other. Or, you know, January.
X is
10,
equal to L
so
sub 0. What does that do?
February 20. Those are elements 1.
If we had a list and we appended some items, what does that do? Yeah, it gets the value of the first item. Gets the first item in the list. How do you get the last one? X is equal to L negative 1. Gets the last item in the list. If the list is only one item long, they would be the same thing. Or instead of saying X is equal to, you could just do print, you know. We have been printing. This actually retrieves the value and stores it in a variable for later use. All right, at this point, we should have a program
Alrighty, so
that will
file new.
get all of the data and put it in a list.
I guess
just
we
to
could call
see
this
what that
one
list looks like. This isn't a good way of
Rainfall,
printing a list.
something that
But let's
to
just print
distinguish
that
it
list
from
out
our other one.
all in one line in a primitive format to make sure that our program works so far. What is the temperature of Monday? Just type in some numbers. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever.
Rainfall.py
And there we go.
calculates
It
average
shows
and
us
high
some numbers.
and low
10, 20, 30, 50,
rainfalls
23.
for monthly data.
Now we have a list that is
Using a
the
file.
same length
Now,
as
this
the
is nice
day
because
list.
if you were testing your
where
rainfall
each
program, you
item
probably really got tired of typing in
list
12 different,
matches
you know,
the day.
values.
What is that called? When
It's
you
nice
just
to
do
get to
a
write
list
that
of the
data
same
just
length
once
where
and
the
then run your
data is
program over and over
related
to
by the
test it.
position. Have we used the term parallel list yet? Feel free to shake your head and go,
So
no way.
how's about
All right.
we
Okay.
split
This
this
is a-
up
what's known
into
as a
two
parallel
functions?
list.
And what I mean by that
Parallel
is we
list
may
is when you have
modify
two
this
sets
so that it can create
of
the
data,
file.
two
You know,
lists
if we have time to do this as well as
that are
reading the file.
thematically united.
So let's
by
do
their index number.
DEF.
So like we say we have 3 people. We have a list of names. Don't type this stuff. And then we have a
Read
list
file.
of
Let's pass
ages.
in a file name.
Like I said, don't type it. Joe,
And I'm just going to stick a return here
23.
for now. We'll
Beth.
go back and modify that. And write file.
25.
File name.
Sam,
Stick a return there.
21.
Now read
We have
file is
3
the one that I'm
elements.
really
Now,
interested
if
in
names
at this
was
point
a
because we have
list
a
all
file
by its
format to
lonesome,
go
it would
by.
look like
First
this,
line
right?
is the
Names is
title.
equal
The second
to-
line are the months. The third line
Joe,
is the data.
Beth, and Sam. And the ages
So
list would
file
look like
is
this.
equal to
And
open.
I'm going to take a little bit of care to
File
line them
name,
up,
and
even
we're
though
opening
when
it
you're
for reading.
programming and you're typing stuff in, you don't do this.
If we get an error, it's still going to crash. We're still not really handling that properly.
Right, so how long is the first
Take
list?
scripting, take
3 items
Java,
long. How long is the second list?
those kind of languages, and
23.
we'll get a lot more
This is
into
element
error
0 of
handling.
that
You know,
list.
making programs
This is element
seamless
0
for
of
the
that
user
list.
so that if they make a
Index
mistake, it doesn't kill their
1,
program.
index 2, 1.
All right, now
index
we
2,
have
index 2.
just
So they
3
line up
lines
like
of
that.
data to read. So I don't think we need to write one of those
Parallel
loops that we've been
geometry.
using in the
Parallel
past.
lists. Lists of the same length where the data is united by its index number. So when I wanted to print these things out, I would have a
And
counter
then you
loop
see your professor's brain freeze and he
Or
doesn't
range
remember.
that counted
name
out 0,
of
1,
the-
and 2, and I would print out names sub-0 and ages sub-0. So it would
Command.
print Joe 23. Then I would print out names sub-1
I failed the exam.
and ages sub-1, so it would print out Beth and 25. And then names subscript 2 and ages subscript 2. So it would print out Sam 21.
File dot
So that's
read
what's known as a parallel list.
gets you the entire contents of the file as a single string.
I'm going to cut these and put these into the notes
Or we
instead.
can file dot read line,
Uh,
which would get us line by line.
Let's not say a
So,
parallel
let's
list.
do
Let's
that.
say parallel list.
Line 1 is equal to file
are
dot
2
read
or
line.
more lists of the same length.
Let's strip it. Line 1 dot strip. We remember what stripping does.
Where
It
the
takes the
elements
spaces
in
and the
each
slash ends and stuff like that
list
off the beginning and the end of the data.
Are linked by their index number.
Line 2 is equal to file dot read line, and then same kind of thing. Line 2
Such
dot
as a
strip.
names
Except, I apologize.
list.
It's supposed to be line 1 is equal to line
and
1
then
dot strip.
ages list.
Make sure you make that change, and then again, line 2 is equal to line 2 dot
Okay,
script.
so that's the notes about parallel lists.
And let's get the
what
third
we
line
have
of data.
here, by the time
Line
this for
3
loop
is
is
equal
done,
to
are parallel
file
lists.
dot read line.
Let's
Line 3 is equal to
get rid of
line
that
3
stuff.
dot strip.
I'm gonna just comment it all out with some triple quotes.
Just to test
Where
our
it says
program up
print
to this
temps,
point, let's
under
just
that
print
or
those
above it,
lines
let's
out.
print out the day array. I say array because I teach
Print
a lot of other
debug,
classes in which
comma,
they're called arrays, not
line
lists.
1.
This class are called lists.
I'm just going to
There we
copy and
go.
paste
We
that
have
so
to
I can
enter some more
change the line 1
temperatures.
to line 2. And the line 1 to line 3.
And that did
All right,
it.
I broke this up to make it easier to read, but
See?
now I'm going to
These-
take the spaces.
Monday was
the
213
extra
degrees.
character
It was
turns
pretty
out
hot.
so that I can get more stuff on the
Tuesday
page
was
at the
45
same time.
degrees. Wednesday it was 1 degree. Thursday was 2 degrees. The weather's pretty crazy here. Friday it's 35. Saturday it's 45. And Sunday it's 67. So what is the index value of Thursday?
Down here at the very bottom,
Yeah, so that's
underneath
0, 1, 2, 3. So the temperature on Thursday is the
this
index
right
value
file.
of 3 in this list. 0, 1.
I'm just going to ask
2,
for the file
3.
name.
So on Thursday
File
it was
name
2
is
degrees.
equal to
And
input.
what do you know it was?
What is
Alright,
our file
we have made
name?
our list.
We may make
We
this
have
more
our data.
complicated later when we decide.
We can get rid of those
you know,
two things.
Press
because we're
1
going
to
print
read
them
from
in a better
file,
format.
press 2 to write to file, that kind of thing.
We're going to use another range.
Okay,
to
so we have a file name. There's no reason to convert it to an int or
For
a float
in
because it's a
in
name, not a
range,
string. I mean, not an int
the
or a
length
float.
of the day list. We could
So,
also
and then
we could
read
base it
file,
on the length
file
of the temp list as well.
I
because
forgot
they're
one
of
more
the
line
same
of close,
length.
which was one more line. So above my return statement in read file, I'm going to do
Print
file.close.
the day
Just not to
at
leave
that
it
value,
open.
and then the temp at that value. Temps at that value.
So I'm going to save this one in the same directory that I saved my text file. I think I decided to call it Rainfall. That's going to mess me up because I have rainfall.txt and rainfile.py. I may regret. But I may have already had a file called rainfall.py. I'm saving mine as rainfall.py, but if you already have one, name that. You could pick a different name.
So now we want to create.
I know what I need to do. I'm going to cut that
we
right
want to get
file
the sum of
declaration
the list.
and move it above read file so
If
that
we
it
wanna do
doesn't
it
get in our way,
easy
so that we
like,
can
we
compare.
just use
you
the
know,
sum
so we can
function
just
that they
see
give
all
us.
this in the same time.
Total is equal
Right,
to
let's run it.
sum of the temps. We could print that out. That's the easy
Rainfall
way.
dot
That's much too easy, so we're not
txt.
going to do that.
Okay, it read our 3 lines
However,
of code. Good enough.
Do remember this.
Whenever you're writing
Because
a
in the
program,
real
take
world, there's no
pauses
reason to
temporarily
write a for
to get the
loop
program to a
to add
point
up
where
all
it will
these
run,
temperatures.
even if it doesn't do
Now
what
we
you
could
want it
use
to do.
another range-based for loop, or we could
Pretty
use a
much,
for
you know,
each
every
loop
time
in order
you
to get all the temperatures out.
Walk away from your program, it should be at a point where it runs, even if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
We haven't done a
so
for
that
each
when you
loop
come back
yet
to it, it's
in
ready
this
to go. And if you
example.
do this
So
periodically,
what would
you can
that
make
look
sure
like?
that you're catching the problems
For-
as you go along. You know, if I couldn't read this data in, then the rest
And
of
I'm
it's
just going
not
to call
gonna
it
work.
T for temperature.
So, speaking of that,
And-
anybody getting compilation errors, you need
Now I'm not going to use range because it's not a range loop.
Alrighty,
What
we are
is-
pros
what do
at
I
this
do here
point.
instead?
Let's
I wanna
actually
step
do
through all the
something with
temperatures,
those
so
lines.
what am
I
I
don't
gonna
think we
put
need
here?
to debug that data anymore.
Temps.
I guess it wouldn't hurt to leave that stuff in, but I'm going to...
In
I'm
order
gonna
for
leave
this
them in. You
loop to
never know.
work, we need to have
We
a
can delete them
counter.
later.
Excuse me. A total variable.
So
to
the
add
first one is
everything
just our
into.
title.
So total is
So
equal
title
to
is
0.
equal to line 1. Our
For
months
T in
list
temperatures. Total
is equal to
plus
line 2 dot
equals T.
split based
By
on
the
commas.
time we're done, now we have the total. So let's calculate the average. Average is equal to total divided by what?
And then our reigns, I'm just making it plural because it's a list of reigns.
If it was 3
It's
temperatures,
stupid,
we would
you know,
divide it by 3.
Is
If it's
equal
8
to
temperatures,
line
we
3
divide by
dot
8.
split by commas.
The length of the list.
For debug purposes, why don't
And
we
now
print
let's print
those
that out.
3
Print.
things out as well? Or at least the rainfall. So, and the months.
The average
So
temperature.
print debug, comma,
was,
months.
comma, average.
Print debug, comma, rains. looks like it worked. This debug printed out a list of months. This debug printed out a list of rainfall. So far so good.
Run it. Print it out.
Let's find
We don't
out.
need to again.
Run
That
module.
would calculate it in one line.
Rainfall.
Rather than the 4 lines that this took.
It's not real pretty output, but that's what it looks
So
like.
why did I
Good.
show you this?
Alrighty.
Because I'm just trying to burn into your brain the idea of loops. to build a
Alrighty.
list.
So
You could do all sorts of things.
let's map
You
out
could
where we're going to
through the
go
list,
next.
Item by item, looking for the maximum value.
Printing
You
it
could
might
go
be
through
nice.
the list, item by
So
item,
in a
looking for the
pretty
minimum
table.
value. We already have a max.
Table
and
just
min
meaning, you know,
function.
month followed by the
I wonder
rainfall.
if we could just let's play with that and see if that works.
Then calculate and display the average.
Just go back to the
And
shell, do run Python shell.
Calculate
In fact, I'm going to close it and start it
display
again so that
the high and low
a fresh one to
months.
play with. Run Python shell, and I'm going to make a list that just contains 3 numbers. L is equal to 8, 6, 7.
I'm going to recommend we do these not
What
in
is
quite
the
this
max
order.
of that list?
We may want to
Let's see if
mess
it'll
with
tell
the
us.
printing of the table, you know, so
What is
that
the
it
min
would
of
put
that
an H
list?
next to the high month and an L
6.
next to the low month, something
Very
like
good.
that.
What
And
is
to
the
have
sum
that
of that
information
list?
available to us, we would
8
need
plus
to
6
know
plus 7. So those built-in functions are pretty useful, meaning
This,
that we
you
don't
know,
have to
the
write
av-
loops
the,
that
high and low
process
month.
the entire list and look for them.
Okay. So calculate and display the average. That's easy. It's just a sum, except these are not integers. That's the problem with doing this stuff. Seems like we hit this previously and we wrote a function to convert a list of strings to a list of integers. So
Yes, sir.
drag, but let's go do it. Define
Age
Get
isn't part of the assignment. I
list.
said not to type
Last
that
time
in.
I had
Those
a-
were just notes that I'm
a more
pasting
annoying
into.
name.
We're not doing anything with names either. Let me
So
bring
what we
the code
need to
back
do
up.
is to make a new list.
This is all about temperatures.
It's going to be an empty
Everything that
list.
had to do with ages and stuff like that.
Then we need a for loop to
comment out
process
with
every
Putting
element
3
in
quotes
L
up at
and
the
convert
top,
it to
or
a
you can cut
string.
it out and put it in another file. It's not part of this program.
For X and L, X is equal to the string version of X. No,
Already
what
have
am I
this
doing? I is equal to the,
There we go.
maybe we want floats. What if they want to type in 50.3? So I is equal to the float version of that string, and then we want to add that to our new list. New L.add I. And then untab so that we can do a return new L.
So we know how to access every element in a list. That's
So we
it
may as
for
well
each
make a
loop.
comment as to what the heck this is
For
doing.
H in horseman, print H.
Convert list of
It will
strings
print out
to
war,
list
famine,
of
pestilence,
floats.
death. If you want to get the length of the list, you do it with the len function. This is a for range loop. For I
We could
in
do
range,
that as soon as we read the
the
data in.
length of the horseman
We don't need to
list,
wait until, you
print
know,
out
so by
horseman
the time we
I.
get down
I guarantee that if I ask
to
somebody
that call
to do that,
that says
and that,
data is
they'll-
equal to line
somebody's
3
gonna
dot strip,
mix 'em up.
immediately
Try
after
real
that do
hard
data
to
is
remember the
equal to
difference
get
between
I
them.
list parentheses data.
It's just a counter variable, right?
So just find the line that says data is equal to
You
line
call it
3
Woody, and you could call this one Buzz.
dot
And
split.
For Buzz and Horseman,
And
print
then
Buzz, it would still
underneath
print
that
out war,
put,
famine,
okay, I'm going to scroll
pestilence,
down
and death.
and do that now. I hope you don't see this. I'll scroll back up to that if you need it. And I didn't call it data, I called it rains. So rains is equal to
So we're going to call this one a
get I
For
list rains.
loop.
There ought to be an easier way of doing that. We shouldn't have to write our own function to do that. But
We're
man,
going to call this
we'll do it.
a for range loop.
Let's run it again to make sure that didn't break anything. You're going to get tired of typing in rainfall.txt, but it's easier than typing in 12 rainfalls. Ew, and it blew up.
List membership. If you want
That's
to see
because it's
if
not
a value is in
.add.
another
That
list,
is a Java
use the
command
IN
for
keyword.
a string list.
Go
What
back
is
to
it?
your
It is
shell.
append, correct. Change that .add to append.
If you can't find it, just do shell or you know, if you're in the other one,
I like
do
comments so
run,
much, I'm going to add one
start
to
new
this
shell,
one. Make empty list,
run Python shell. Okay, make a list.
and then add the list.
Just make it contain 3 numbers, just like we had here, 100, 200, 300.
All right, these look to honest to
And then
goodness
let's
numbers
find out
now.
if the number
They don't have
150
quotes
is in
around them,
that
so they're
list.
no longer strings, they're
150
numbers.
in L.
Meaning we can do
No,
fun
it
stuff
is
with them,
not.
like calculate the average. That's really
So
fun.
you would word that in your
Okay.
code as
Anybody
something
need a
like,
pause?
if 150 in L do something.
And when I mean pause, you need me to stop typing.
Print yes.
Okay. No, absolutely no problem. Do you need this
Backspace over.
function,
It's
or
not
do
going
you
to print
need me to
yes
scroll
because
down to where?
150 is not in that list.
Okay, he's gonna go to the restroom, so give me a second.
All right, I better pause.
If we did
Yeah,
the same
go use
thing,
the restroom. Okay.
100 in L, it's going to say ta.
So if you didn't get this part yet,
Chapter
remember
a
that to
little bit
actually get
more.
this to work, we need to.
But this is pretty much
invoke
the
our
end
function.
of the useful
So down
part
at
of
the
this
very
program.
bottom, you need to make sure those 2 lines of code are there.
And what do I mean by that? Now we may throw some things in that may sort the days or whatever, but
Okay. So to calculate the average, that's not too hard. Average,
So,
AVG is
in
equal
these
to the
examples that I've
sum
been typing in from the
of the
code, if we
rains.
wanted to sort the horsemen,
The rains
we
down
would
in
do
Africa
horsemen
is divided by
is
the
equal to
length of the
sorted
rains.
horsemen. And then when we printed them out, they would be in the order death first, famine, pestilence, and then war.
And then calculate and display. I'm actually kind of leaving off the displaying right now for later, so I'm just going to say calculate average.
If you want to remove an element from the list, you can do that.
And then calculate the high and the low
Specifies
months.
index value.
Now, a couple of people noticed that there was a
Say
ungood
we don't
thing
like
in the
the
way
first
we were
elements in our
printing out
list.
the high and the low
For
in the past.
whatever reason.
Which is like if you had several months with a rainfall of 0, it would only print the first one,
day,
you know, the lowest. So we may try to
Delete.
fix that. We may try to make it to mark
Alright.
every single one. So we're kind of veering a little off course, but I'm
my
trying to
list
get
dot
in
remove.
new ideas
That's what it
as
is.
well as just the
So,
idea of reading in the data.
my
Because,
list
you know, we
dot
could have just
remove.
cut and
Well,
pasted
it's
the whole
not called
code.
my list. It's called
At this
day.
point, put the read statements
Day
in.
dot
We'd be pretty
remove. We're going to remove
Okay,
the first
so
item from the
calculate
list.
high and low.
And then temps dot remove. We're going to remove the first
High
item from that
rain
list. Now let's just print them out.
is equal to
Print day.
the max of the rains.
Print temps. And we'll see
Except really, we
that
want
that
the
did
integer.
remove the first element of each list.
We're going to leave that alone. And then the low rain is equal to the min of the rains. And
As a
so
matter of fact,
rather
it broke up.
than just
Yeah,
find
where'd I get
one
X?
month that matches the criteria, let's
It's
find
looking for
all
the
of the
value.
months that match the
It's
criteria.
trying to remove.
So maybe we
I
could
did that
call
wrong.
this one high
My
months.
apologies. Forget what I said about remove.
And
at
we're going to
this
make it an
point.
empty string so
We
that
will
we
get
can
back
add
to
stuff
that.
to it.
What
Same
it's
for
actually
low
trying
months.
to do is remove
Low
an
months
element
is equal to
by
an
that
empty
value,
string.
not
Those
by
are
that
single
index.
equals.
What do I mean by that? If you had this,
And let's
names
write a
is
loop.
equal to
For
Jeff.
x,
Joe
no,
and Jill, and then you did this.
I like using I if
N
it's a
dot
counter
remove.
for a list. We're not
Joe.
going to use an NL. We're going to use a
Then when you printed
in
it out, it
length.
would say Jeff and Jill.
So we're not going to use a for each loop. We're going to use a for. Okay, so for I in the length of the rains list.
What's
The
the
rain
length
for
of
that
that
day-
list once we've removed Joe?
For that month is equal to rains parentheses I. If that rain is equal to
two,
the
'cause
high
it had
rain,
3 elements. Now it's got 2.
let's add that month to the high months. High months plus equals the
So
months
you
at that
can write a
specific
function
month
that makes a list.
plus a space just to
All
make it
you
look
have to
nice.
do is create the list in the function and then return
And the
it.
same for checking to see if the rain is
Let's
equal
play
to
with
the low.
that. DEF.
If
Make
rain is equal
nums.
to low
It's going to make a
rain,
list of numbers.
then low months.
The numbers are just going to be,
Plus
10,
equals
20, 30, or something like that. We'll come up
months
with
at
something.
I.
So we need to
And
make
if they're
an
all
empty
0,
list to
then
add stuff
all the
to.
months,
I want to make my empty
know,
list call
all the high
R,
months and all the low months are
because
going
I'm
to be
going
the
to be
same.
returning it.
plus a
Or
space.
no, nums. Nums is equal to, I want it to be an empty list, so what do I type?
Probably not a bad idea at this point
Yeah,
to
empty brackets.
stop and do some more debug printing.
Now I want to count
print
from 10 up to 100, skipping 10s every
average
time.
is equal to
So for
comma AVG.
X in range, starting at 10, going to 1 past 100 so that it'll actually
Low
stop at
rainfall
100, but
months.
increment by 10 each time. And then nums plus equals X.
Don't you hate it
Then
when you use a
return X.
computer and it says something like 1 months, you know, and it's plural?
So down
so
here,
we're going to skip that word entirely.
we wanna
Low
store those in a
rainfall,
value. We could do L is equal to make nums.
colon,
And then we
followed
can print
by
L, and it's going to
the
print a
months-
list that contains the numbers 10, 20, 30,
low
40,
months,
etc. Now this business about
and then
having to enter
print
7
high
temperatures
rainfall,
each time
colon,
is getting a bit
comma,
tedious.
high months.
So we should probably switch over to a second file. Take those lines that make nums all the way down to print L, cut those and do a new file. Save as, call it April
It
6.
blows up.
Paste them and then let's run them.
Int object
what
is
do you know
not
about
iterable.
that? That's not how you add anything to a list. That's how you create a sum.
I
or a
forgot it's the
total.
range statement.
What is
that's
the
used
function
for
name
I
that
in
adds
range
something to a
of links.
list?
We have to modify this line, this for statement here.
Let's go
to
back
make
and
it
look
say
see how
for
we did
I
it in the other one.
range, parentheses, length,
All right, the code
parentheses,
that added it
range,
to the list,
and then 2 in
to our
parentheses.
temperature list is in here. What function there was the one that added it to our temps list? Append, right. We're going to do that to our nums list. So nums dot append X.
All right, this may actually be right. It found 3 months with low rainfall, 1 month with a high
And it only
rainfall. It'd
printed
be
100.
nice if it also printed out that number.
That is certainly not what I was expecting.
So let's
Because
change
I
our print
append-
statement
returned
just a
X
little
rather than
bit.
nums. I am not paying attention. There we go.
Let's just stick that low rain
Okay. The changes we made. This needed to be nums dot
in
append
front of low
X,
months,
and that one needed to be return
high
nums,
rain in front of high months.
not return X. Now it will work.
And it'd be nice if we were specifying things like millimeters or inches or whatever, and then we would output all that.
And there's our list of those numbers. So this function, write a function that returns a list containing the numbers 10 through 100, skipping by 10. That's how we did that.
Work? Alrighty. So 3 months with rain of 0. 1 month of rain of 40, or whatever your data is. You may only have 1 month, you know, in each category. I think this is looking
Write
pretty
another
good.
make nums. Call it
So
make
do we
nums
want to print
2.
our table of data to where it goes, you know,
that does
down
this.
vertically or across
Write a
horizontally?
function that returns a list
I
containing
heard a vote for down, so let's do that.
the numbers
It's easier.
between 20 and 30.
For I
skipping
in
by 1.
range, the length of the range list.
So you're going to need that
Why am I doing
definition?
that rather than just the for each, the for I in L syntax? The reason why is I need that number.
And then you're
because
going to
that's
need
the
to
one that
actually call it.
connects
to test
the
it.
two
So down at the
parallel
bottom,
lists.
after your return,
So that month 0
You're gonna need
is
to do
January, rainfall 0
L is equal to
is,
make-
you know,
whoops, I
40
wanted to
or
call it
whatever.
make nums
We
too.
need that
Sorry.
index number in order to connect
L
those.
is equal to make nums 2,
So let's
and
print
then print
the month name.
L. So here's what you need to fill in. A function that returns a list containing the numbers between 20 and 30, skipping by 1.
And then the rainfall. Rainfalls at that time.
Fill in here.
What does our rainfall? Rainfall.txt. It blew up. Rainfalls is not defined. I thought I called it.
Copy
Rainfalls.
all
What did I
that,
call it?
paste it here. But if I wanted to start at 20
Rains. Oh, excuse me.
and
Okay.
end at 30, what should I make these two numbers?
Yeah.
Yep,
I should have
20
known
and
I had rains
31.
there.
If I wanted to
be
skip by
that.
ones, I could put a comma 1 there. But if you're going by ones, you can also leave that off entirely. So that's totally cool, or you could leave it off. Either way would work.
Alrighty, we could make this a prettier table. It could be spaced out
Pardon
better,
me?
that kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll
Go back
upload them
if you
both.
still have your text
Do you
file
need the
loaded
Dropbox
up
right now, or okay,
and change
let
one
me
of
do
these
that.
to have like 10.54321 as the rainfall.
Write a
The sensor
program
got a little overly ambitious that month. Recorded it out to 5 decimal
that
places.
asks for the rainfall for a series of months. You know, what is the rainfall for
All right.
January?
Maybe I want to round it to one,
What is
one
the
place or
rainfall,
something
you
like
know?
that. There is
Etc.
a style of formatting that we haven't played with where we can format what our data looks like when we print it out.
Put all
Let
of
me show you what that
those
looks like.
rainfall measurements.
Just scroll up to the very, very,
In a
very
list
top.
named
We're going to
rain.
add some print statements and then we're going to remove them. Let's say that we have a number equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Print the
9.
data, the month, and the rain for that month.
And we have another number or
the
something that's
average
a
rainfall?
name. Bob. And we want to print it out
And
so
the
that
month
Bob fills
with the
up 10
lowest.
spaces on the screen.
Rainfall.
And so
And the
that
month with
X only displays 2 decimal
highest rainfall.
places. So we're going to use a special syntax of the print
That
statement.
ought to sound real familiar.
Print.
Because that's exactly what we did with the days, right?
Percent
I didn't hear
10s,
resounding right, but
it's a
that's
string
that's
that
pretty
we
much
want
the
to
exact
fill up
same
10
thing that we just
spaces,
done.
followed by percent dot to F.
If you have a string,
And
you can
then,
split it.
instead of a comma like we
into a
normally
list
use,
really
put a
easily.
percent sign, put some parentheses like that, and we're going to print out Y, comma X. And then run it,
Go
and
back
you don't
and
have to
do
type in a
run
rainfall or anything. We
Python
just want to see
shell.
if this works. Okay, print it out Bob, and it printed out 1, 2,
Make
3.
a list of colors. Colors is equal to red, green. No. We're just going to make a string. Sorry, my mistake.
So what is this doing? This is a placeholder for a certain value. And this percent means I want you to do something special with it.
Red, green,
It
blue.
defines the placeholder.
yellow,
The placeholder's for a string, and it's going to be 10 characters wide. If I change that to a 20,
Now we want to
it
get a
would
list
add
of
out with
that.
spaces the name out to 20
So
characters on the
C, which
screen.
is going to be our color
If
list,
you
is
notice,
equal
it's
to,
right justified. So that if
colors
you were
dot
putting out names of different
split.
length, they'd all be
and then hit
right
C,
justified.
and
Usually
it'll
we
print
like
out
those
red,
left
green, blue,
justified.
yellow, and orange.
If you wanted to make it left justified, you could put a
So that was a
minus
quick.
sign
I'll be right
after
back
the
there.
percent.
That was a quick way of
The,
turning a
minus
string.
sign tells it that
into
this placeholder
a
is
list
actually
of
supposed to be
values.
a left justified column. So that's the name. The next one
So if you're going to be
says,
opening
I
a
don't really care
document
how
and
many
scanning for
columns wide
words,
it is,
that might be something you
but
want
I
to
only
do.
want you to
Read in the
display
entire
2 decimal
document and then
places.
make
So
a
no
list
matter
that has all the
how
words in that
precise our
document.
data is, I want you to round it to 2 decimal places. It doesn't change the data, it just changes the way we display it. So this is an example of using placeholders.
So let's go back to that April 6th.
We're going to do
script
something
we
like
were
that
working
on our table down here at the bottom.
Let's ask the user to type in a sentence, and then we're just going to break it up into strings, into a list of strings.
So I'm going to go down to my for loop that prints a table, but I think I'm just going to nuke
say
that.
text is
We're going to make it a
equal
little bit
to
more ambitious to where it
input.
prints an H at the end
Please
of
type
the
a
line if it's a
sentence.
high month, and it prints an L at the end of the line if it's a low month.
And in
So I
words
can't even think of a good
is equal to text dot split.
name
Like
for
And then
that
let's
column.
print the words out
High-low
like that.
is equal to empty string, but then we're going to change it. If the range at I is equal to our high rain,
Hello there, my good friend.
Then high-low
I
is
typed
equal
in hello there,
to
my good friend,
or
and it printed out a
plus
list.
equals
Hello there,
an
my
H for
good
high.
friend.
or heck, we could
I don't think we're going to do much
spell out the whole
split.
word. I'm putting a space at the end of it,
Last time we did Simon
just so that
Says
I
in
can
the previous
also
semester,
add
we
on the
used
word
split,
low, which is
so
silly,
that we could pass
but
in
you
all
know,
the commands
that way we could have multiple things.
like this. You
In the
remember our Simon
list,
Says
if
we
we
had, don't
needed
type
it.
this. We had commands,
not
and then
making
we,
sense.
you know, we
Just go with
listed
it.
some stuff like
If
up,
range at that index value is equal to the low
forward
range,
30, right 90.
then we want to add the word
forward
low
90. We had all that
to our
right,
string.
except they were broken up like this. That's what our program looked like.
The only reason I'm doing that is so that if
With
you entered
split,
data that was entirely the
modify
same
it
value all
so
the
that
way
it
down,
just
it would
looked like
say
this.
that each month was both
Commands
high
is
and
equal
low.
to
Is that strictly necessary?
30.
No.
right 90, forward 90, that kind
In
of
fact,
thing.
I'm beginning to think that's ridiculous.
And then you use the split function to turn
Just
it
make
into
it
a list.
equals high and equals
If you
low.
still have... Nah, let's not. You've
All right,
got
that's going to be the
idea.
third
You can
column. We're
turn
going to have a
string
month, we're going to
like
have a
that
rainfall, and then
into
we're
a
going to have
list like
something
that
that
for
may
you.
say high, it may say low,
So
it
if
may
I have
say
those
nothing.
commands, and again, don't necessarily type them. We've already done split right here. If I had those commands there and then I wanted to turn that into a list, I would do
You need me to
commands
make a-
equals commands.split. And when I was done, commands would now look
Anybody
like
need
that
me to make a Dropbox? I can pause and do
rather
that.
than that.
All right.
I'll just put that in our notepad.
All right, everybody's going to get credit for this homework, even if you didn't get it finished. So you can go ahead and upload it. All righty. So, how many
All right,
spaces
so
wide should we make the
vocabulary.
month? Well, it's only 3 spaces wide
haven't
at the
talked
moment,
much
just
about
because it's, you know,
cloning.
3-letter abbreviations. But we may want to change that. What's the longest month?
We haven't talked about much about aliases. I guess it's worth mentioning.
Let's make it
Let's
10
go back
spaces.
here
That's the month.
and make one list that's a list
Now,
of colors.
what do we expect our maximum rainfall to
C
be?
is equal to
How
red.
much rain can you have in a
blue,
month? Let's say that you can have up to
green.
999 inches or millimeters or whatever, and you want
And let's
one
make another
digit
list
after that.
that's
So
the same list.
1, 2, 3, 999, followed by the
C2
point. That's
is equal
4,
to C.
followed by a number that's
Now we're
5.
going
so
to remove
percent
red from that list.
5.1F. F stands for
So
floating
C
point number.
dot remove red.
And then it doesn't really
And now
matter
we're
how
going to
long this
print
last thing
C2.
is, the word high or low, so I'm just not going to specify a width at all. So instead of the comma, I need to have some parentheses there, and I need to put in those 3 values.
And what do you
Months
expect C2 to contain?
At I,
We
comma,
removed it
rains at
from
I,
C,
and it's going to
right?
scroll off the
So it ought to
left.
still be red, blue, green, but it's not. When we run it,
I mean, off the screen. High, low.
it just says blue, green. And the reason why is that doesn't copy the contents of the list. It just points 2 of them to the same list. It's called an alias. You know, Clark Kent is an alias of Superman. But they're the same person.
All right. I consider this the most
Guy,
likely code to
Superman's
have a
hair
syntax
green,
error.
And Clark Kent's
when
going
we
to
run
show
it.
up at work with his hair green.
So let's see if it works.
So they're the same thing. C2 and C are the same thing. So if we change C, it changes C2. And if we change C2, it changes C. So
Alrighty, there's our table.
C2 is an
It'd be nice if
alias
we'd
of
print
C.
the, you know, the name,
That's
name of
right,
the columns.
Clark Kent
That's a month and that's a rainfall, that kind of
is an
thing.
alias of Superman.
But I think that's pretty
They're the
useful.
same thing.
That's formatted in a pretty nice way. I can instantly look at it and
If
gain
you
some
want a
information
list,
from it. Table
if you
doesn't
want
have
to
a
make an
header, that's
actual
the only
copy of the
drawback.
list so you
show
can
this
do
to a
other
customer and
things
they
with
want you
it,
to add a nice little header
you
to
use
it.
a funny form of the
Then they'd
slice
ask you to automate
syntax.
the mailing of it to somebody, or, well, anyways. Okay, so I think,
Up here,
yeah, sorry I covered that up.
let's add some commas.
I think we're done
C2
with this.
is
I don't
equal
think we need to
C.
write a
We're just gonna
program
say
that would let you
C2
add this data to a file.
is
So
an
why don't we just
alias
stop
of
there?
C. But underneath that, we're going to make a copy of it. C3 is equal to C. We want to do a slice. What does it assume? The end of the list. So that just assumes the whole dang list. So now that we printed out,
And so this is what our output looks like after we comment out the debug print statements. Alright, so we're done. Go ahead and upload that into Dropbox 13.